Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
You are listening to the Brilliance Business Show. I am your host, Mark Stephen Pooler. Conversations with leading experts in business. And today I have the most incredible guest, Paul Oliver. Paul Oliver is a brand ambassador, and our topic today is really close to my heart. And our topic is inside the world of hair transplants. Paul, welcome to the Brilliance Business Show.
Thank you, Mark. Nice to speak to you again.
You too, Paul, and I'm super looking forward to a conversation with you today. Before I get started, I'm just going to make a legal disclaimer that Paul is not offering legal advice or legal assistance. So let's get started with the show. Paul, can you share with our listeners a little bit about yourself and your business?
Okay, so my name is Paul Oliver and I work for Vinci Hair Clinic, one of the world's leading clinics for hair loss solutions. We offer hair transplants using methods known as follicular unit excision. People might know this as follicular unit extraction. It was known for that for years and years and years, and for reasons that I've never understood, they recently changed the name. But anyway, FUE is what people know it as. And we also offer something called follicular unit transplantation, FUT. This job, I warn you, is full of acronyms. There are several more to come, so I'm just warning you now. We offer products to prevent hair loss, so we don't only put hair back in, we prevent hair from being lost further. And some of those treatments are things like plasma-rich platelets, PRP, another acronym. This is where we take a small sample of the patient's blood, we extract the plasma from it, and we re-inject that back into the top of the scalp. And that will promote hair growth. It's something that will be well known to perhaps your American listeners, because over there they call it blood spinning, and a lot of athletes will do it to heal quicker from an injury. It actually works on hair as well. We offer laser cap therapy, and we offer a number of medications. And these are all to prevent further hair loss, because a hair transplant is for life. People may not know that, but when you put hair in, done correctly, you've got it for good. But you could still be susceptible to losing more hair. So it's important to protect the existing hair. So we offer all that as well. And one final acronym, for now anyway, MSP, microscalp pigmentation. Now, I won't go too deeply into these now, because I'm sure you're probably going to ask me to expand on that further.
Well, I've heard little bits about plasma, Paul, but I've not heard about it being used for hair, actually. And I'm quite up on these things, so that's a new one for me. I am a big fan of hair transplants. It's no secret. I actually had a hair transplant with Vinci Clinic, and it really changed my life. We can talk about that a little bit more later. So let's carry on with the conversation. Who are your customers, Paul?
Okay, we see just about every part of society, with probably the exception of children. We don't do hair transplants for children, but we see men, women, gay, straight, young, youngish, and older people. And whether you've lost a small amount of hair, a lot of hair, or you have no hair at all, we have a solution for it. In the past, when I first started doing this job, if somebody came in and they'd lost a huge amount of hair, or they suffered from alopecia, I had to turn them away. And it was quite sad. They came in looking for an answer. I said, sorry, there's nothing we can do, but we have solutions for those people as well now. And again, later on, I'm sure we'll expand further into exactly what we do. But basically, our client is, if you're under 25, you're pretty much a possible client to us.
I mean, I remember how it affected my self-esteem, and it's a big problem, hair loss. And the fact that you can even solve people's problems with alopecia. My own mother suffers with that, and I know how that really can affect people's mental health, their mood, how they live their day-to-day life. I just love what you're doing, Paul. Do you recall a specific ha-ha moment that led to working in this industry?
I do, very much so. I spent a few years living in Canada. And when it came to the point of me returning to the UK, I decided I didn't want to go back to what I was doing before. I wanted to completely change my career path. So that got me thinking, what do I want to do? What can I do? And importantly, who is going to give me the opportunity to do it? Because I was just about 50 at this point. And when you pass 50, companies don't always look at you in the same way. It's a little bit ageism, I think, creeps in. They want the younger people. So finding somebody that was going to offer me what I wanted to do was something I thought might be quite difficult. So anyway, after thinking about it for some time, what do I really want to do? And I went through different ideas. It dawned on me, I have been obsessed with hair since I started to lose my own at the tender age of 17. So I thought, yeah, I'm obsessed with hair. So what can I do in the world of hair? So I started to research, and I wrote to some companies, and I got 3 offers of an interview, which was quite pleasing. Only 2 of those actually became an interview. And I made the first appointment. It was a well-known company, and I met the sales director. I won't share their name because it isn't something I'm going to praise them about, but the sales director sat in front of me and he told me he'd had a transplant with the company, and I looked at it and I thought, that's awful. I don't want to offer people something that bad. Plus, he made all sorts of financial promises. He was one of these that said, oh, you'll earn telephone numbers. And I thought, that sounds too good to be true. And usually if something's too good to be true, in my experience, it's not true. So he put me off, actually. So they actually did offer me a job, by the way, but I turned it down. The second interview was with the CEO of Vinci Hair Clinic. And I actually felt like we interviewed each other. At the end, I can remember saying, I like you, we could work well together, which was pretty bold because he hadn't actually offered me a job at this point. So telling the person who's interviewing that you like them and we could work well was perhaps a risky strategy. But fortunately, he liked me as well, and we drew up there and then a 1-page contract, which we, from this day, which is quite a long time ago now, we've never actually looked at. Working for Vinci has been an absolute privilege, and for me, an unexpected bonus career after the age of 50. So, yeah, I was sitting in my basement in Canada thinking, what the heck do I want to do? And I thought, hair, just like a eureka moment, and it's been a fantastic move for me.
I can relate to that so much, Paul. Like yourself, I have always done things in the hair industry. When I had my hair transplant back in 2012, my full-time job was a hairdresser. And
I remember, yeah.
Yes, I was around 30 years old. I could be a little bit wrong on numbers there, but around 30 years old, because it's been 8 years since I had my hair transplant with Vincey. And it was getting to the point where I was starting to have to comb my hair over to hide my receding hair loss.
The dreaded comb over.
Yes, there is nothing worse than that, Paul. As a hairdresser, I was looking after people, making their hair look amazing every day, looking in the mirror, always touching my hair, pushing it back in place to cover my receding hairline. I have not had that problem for 8 years. My hair transplant looks better now than it did before I had that procedure. It's better now than it ever was 8 years on. So I have so much praise to say for Vinci Hair Clinic. I went to the best clinic in Harley Street. I was looked after like a celebrity, and I can honestly say it was the best £5,000 I ever spent. So Paul, what really motivates you to jump out of bed every morning?
Well, as I rapidly approach my 63rd birthday in less than 2 weeks, I might not be jumping out of bed these days, but what motivates me to get up at 6 a.m. to travel into the office is the unknown, not knowing just who is going to come and see me for a consultation that day. And the characters are so different, from very outgoing people who are going to share their experiences of their hair transplant all over social media, to the very quiet person who's going to keep it very confidential. And things have changed over the years. 10 years ago, let's say, keeping it confidential seemed sometimes to me, people were more interested in keeping it confidential than if it actually worked. That has changed. People now do share their results, but there are still people that want to keep it confidential, and we can help them with that and make sure that that happens. Many guys have said to me, I have never talked to anyone about how I feel about my hair. With men, we're expected to accept it. Okay, we're going bald, it happens, grin and bear it. But why? Today, you don't have to. If you want to grow your hair back and save the existing hair, you can. And it doesn't cost as much as people think. You said you paid your best £5,000 you've ever spent, and that is an investment in yourself that will last for the rest of your life. Hopefully, you're going to be around for another 50 years. If you spent £5,000 on a second-hand car, in 5 years' time, you're going to be replacing it. Your hair transplant will be growing in, as I say, potentially 50 years' time. There are lower prices. I mean, it depends what you need, and the prices start as low as £2,500, depending on what people need. But it's a long-time investment. I also like the part of the job where people come back and see me. You came back to see me after 12 months, and the hair at that point is fully developed. And I hear in many cases how it has changed them, like you've just said, often saying they're more confident than they've ever been before. One quick example of that is a guy that I saw who told me he would never go anywhere unless he could wear his hat because of his bald head. That's restaurants, weddings, family parties, etc. Just wouldn't go anywhere. Then tragically, his work colleague of 25 years died, and this fella could not bring himself to attend his funeral because of removing his hat in church. When I saw him a year after his transplant, he said he felt a sense of freedom. He would now do all of those things he would not do before. Now, not everyone is going to be that affected, of course, but it just shows how deeply affected some men are, but they'll usually hide it. They won't share it with people, and they'll keep it to themselves. So I'm not a psychologist, but I do feel sometimes that people are sharing their issues with me that they've never shared with anybody else.
And I agree with you there. I think with men, they have a certain amount of pride. They don't share their feelings. And when I first had mine done, I did tell close people I had had it done, and I did wear a hat for a short while. But I think as I've grown that little bit older, Paul, I'm like, what the hell? I'm just going to share, because I'm proud I've had a hair transplant, because when I look back at photos before, I was starting to look older. It made me look a lot older than I was. So why would I not share the fact of this amazing service that I have been given, because I look a lot younger now.
I've done a lot. I have to say this, Mark. I've done a lot of interviews with radios, and it's the first time I've ever done one with a past client. So it's absolutely fantastic to get the feedback that people just don't think, well, you work for the company, you would say that, wouldn't you? So to get this feedback from yourself is really great.
So what sets your business apart, and what need are you filling for your customers?
The best way I can answer that, I think, is I've seen over the past, let's say 5-6 years, a huge increase in the cheap hair transplant offer. Countries like Turkey in particular has become a place where people pay a low fee for a transplant. What we offer is not what you get in Turkey. You get a one-to-one service with us. When people go to Istanbul, they will find they're one of 8 to 10 patients, all in one room, all being treated at the same time, with one patient having just one assistant doing all the work, and there may or may not be a doctor present. With Vinci Hair Clinic, and hopefully you can back me up on this, you're treated by the doctor and his assistants, and for certain procedures, there can be as many as 6 people taking care of you. We've seen many examples of very poor results from Turkey, either weak growth or damage to the donor hair, yet nobody will go back to Istanbul and complain. With Vinci, if you need to, I would say very few do, but you can come and see a member of staff locally or one of the doctors at the surgery at any time for no cost. In other words, we take ownership of our work. We care about what happens to the patient after he is paid, not just before. And you touched on it earlier. You said you felt that you were treated like a celebrity. And you might be a bit of a celebrity now, but you weren't then. You were just a guy from Birmingham. And we look after you the same we do celebrities as well, and everybody gets treated the same.
I can actually say when I was looking into hair transplants, I had a couple of consultations here in the UK. So not only when you go abroad, one company were charging a lot more for the service. It was way more expensive. And then I had another consultation. I won't say the name or anything like that. That would be unauthentic of me. And when I asked the surgeon how many procedures has he done, he said something like 15 procedures. And I was thinking that's not many at all. And they were charging the same price as what you were going to charge me. And then when I contacted you, I came in to see you for the consultation. And I remember my surgeon I got in Harley Street in London had done over 4,000 procedures. I knew that they'd worked on celebrities. I knew that they did bits on television. I knew I was going to someone that had experience that would look after my own concerns. My one concern was I don't want to scar because I'm a hairdresser. I've seen all these horror stories of hair abroad. The scar was a big concern for me. So that was why I chose Vincey, and I wasn't disappointed. So Paul, tell us, why is your service in demand in today's modern world?
According to a 2014 survey by the International Society of Hair Restoration Surgery, 20% of men under 30 will have suffered some amount of hair loss. By the age of 35, approximately 40% of men are suffering from visible hair loss, while by the age of 60, this percentage jumps to 65%. That means that almost half of men by their late 40s or early 50s are suffering from noticeable hair loss. We do see women as well. We see less women in industry, but they unfortunately can lose hair too. And we've helped many women regain thicker hair. So given these figures, it's a huge potential market for us of people that we can help. So that's the service that we're offering. Again, going back to years ago, people would just say, oh, I'm going bald, I'll just put up with it. I probably can't afford it anyway. That's not the case now. Yes, £5,000 is probably the average figure. It's not by any means a small amount, but it's within reach of a lot of people. And if you can invest that money in yourself, you will find that what you get back from it is well worth it.
And another thing, you could even pay monthly for these kind of services.
You can,
there are
interest-free as well.
Monthly, interest-free. I can only say it's the best investment that I have ever made in myself, because your confidence just goes back to how it was. I don't have to look in the mirror and comb my hair over. There's nothing worse than having to do that as a man, especially myself being a hairdresser from a hairdressing background. that was really, really hard, a really hard time of my life. So, Paul, can you share more detail on the kind of services and products you offer?
Okay, so we're going to get into the acronyms again. So we'll start off with a treatment that's become the most popular one today. This wasn't the case when I saw you 8 years ago, but the most popular treatment today is one called follicular unit excision. FUE is what generally people call it, or FUE, I also hear it called. So, as I say, most popular method over recent years. Hair grafts are extracted individually and directly from the donor area. The donor area is the hair at the back and sides of your scalp. Now, you probably will have noticed on many friends and family members that people, men, will lose all the hair on the top of their head, but you never lose that hair around the back and sides. It's immune to baldness. Now, we've never actually put our finger on why it's immune to baldness, but it is. So we have to accept it doesn't go bald. But we do know if we take hair from that donor region and place it onto the top of the scalp, it takes the immunity with it. And that's why transplanted hair will grow for the rest of your life. So with this FUE procedure, not the one you had, Mark, it's a less invasive, less surgical technique. There's no need for stitches. So you're not left with any scar. I know you have a small scar on the back of your head, and you've already told me that you never see it unless you virtually shave all your hair off. But this method leaves no scar. So what we do have to do, and this doesn't appeal to everybody, we do have to trim that hair around the back and the sides to a 0.5 length. So in the UK, we would say we generally know a grade 1. That's even shorter than a grade 1. For the younger guys, that's not a problem. I've noticed that there's generally a split between FUE and FUT, and it's often an age thing. If you're a young guy, we say, well, we need to trim your hair really short around the back and sides. How do you feel about that? The young guys go, yeah, fine, I'd do that anyway. If you say to somebody who might be a CEO, he might be a lawyer, he might be a judge, he goes, no, I don't want to go back to work with a partly shaved head. So that's when the other method comes in, which is FUT, follicular unit transplantation, sometimes called strip harvesting. And this is the one that you had. So with this technique, there is no requirement to trim you or cut your hair. It's in fact better to have your hair longer. So we can use that longer hair to hide the stitches. The stitches only stay in there for about 10 days, and then we can remove them for you free of charge. Although most people, I think you might have done this, go and see the nurse at their local GP and they take them out for no charge. So with this FUT method, more grafts can be taken out in one day. So it has advantages if you need a lot of grafts. A strip of skin is removed from the back of the scalp and then dissected into follicular units, also known as grafts. They're prepared and then inserted back into the balding or thinning area. The hair, for both methods the hair will grow naturally after about 3 months. And as I've mentioned, the results are permanent. This is all done under local anesthetic. And in your time, Mark, you would have experienced the only painful part of a hair transplant, and that was the anesthetic needles. And there was no getting around it. It wasn't pleasant. That has actually been taken away now. We've removed the need to use needles. We actually use a method. Yes, I know. I wish it was around when I was having mine, and I'm sure you do too. The days of the painful needles have gone. So that's a big plus as well.
What do they do instead, Paul?
We use compressed air. So the anaesthetic is forced through the skin with compressed air. So yeah, I really wish it was around in my day. It wasn't, but that's technology. We're seeing with things improve all the time, and that's a big improvement. Once the anaesthetic takes hold, we don't put you to sleep. It's local anaesthetic, but many people will doze up. Did you stay awake throughout the procedure, or did you fall asleep?
I was just going to say, Paul, the needles were a little bit painful. I'm not going to lie, but I have had worse pain at the dentist. Once that anaesthetic kicks in, you do not feel a thing. And I remember watching the surgery before I had it. And if you watch the surgery online, it can look quite horrific when you're watching it. I
I
was
can't
just
watch
so
it.
I was just
I won't
so
watch it.
shocked. I was just so shocked that you don't feel anything. I stayed awake the whole day. I think it took them from around 10 till 5:30, and
Mm.
the television's on, you get lunch. I remember I had a posh lunch. I just remember I didn't feel a thing, and they speak to you, you have conversations, they talk to you. There's lots of people working on you, really precision, graft by graft. Every little thing is done with precision, but I didn't sleep. I just remember I had worse pain at the dentist, and that is the total truth.
I did actually fall asleep. I dozed off during mine. There was a film on, but I dozed off. The staff, because I was a member of staff, the staff took some very unflattering pictures of me asleep. But they've actually been very useful, because when I tell people you could fall asleep during this, they don't believe me, and then I get the picture out of me fast asleep while they're doing the hair transplant. But as you say, if you stay awake, you can watch. We got Netflix. You can watch movies or box sets. We've got a big screen in the surgery, so yeah, it can be a day of enjoying your best or favourite box sets while you're having a hair transplant.
No,
So that
Paul.
sort of covers. Yeah. I was just going to move on to one other thing. That's the hair transplants. But what has become very popular in the last 8 to 10 years is microscalp pigmentation, MSP. There you go, another acronym. This is not hair. It can be used in one of two ways. It can be used to create a very realistic appearance of a shaved hairstyle. So imagine somebody that's got a full head of hair and they shaved it all off. We've all seen that, how that looks. This can be done with somebody who has no hair. And it looks very, very realistic. I mean, you've told me before, you've actually met people who have had this done, and you can vouch for how realistic it looks. It just looks like they shaved all the hair off. Yeah. So the client keeps this style of haircut, of course, because unlike a hair transplant, it isn't going to grow, but it makes such a difference to their appearance. Before they were bald, after it says, I have a full head of hair, I've chosen to shave it off. It's my choice. Nature hasn't taken it from me. I've decided to do it. Plus, just putting back that hairline in can literally take 5 to 10 years off people. It's actually incredible. Yes. The other great use for MSP is to make existing hair look a lot thicker. This is especially useful for female clients. They may not have lost enough hair to consider a transplant, but we've all seen the women in the street, they've got thin hair and you can see the scalp.
I have seen this done, Paul.
Yeah.
It looks incredible. It like fills in the lighter parts of the scalp, and the hair looks really thick again. And I also saw that you can seal scars with the we
can deal with the scars. Yeah. Good point. I'd actually forgotten that. So, yes, we can cover up people's scars if they've had a bad experience of a hair transplant abroad, or maybe an old scar from the 80s or the 90s when the technology wasn't as good. We can camouflage that scar and hide it for people. But I feel this has been a huge boost for women, because we basically, as you said, fill in those areas, and it's an optical illusion. There isn't actually any more hair in there. Physically, there's no more hair on the scalp, but it's an illusion. When you look at the scalp afterwards, it looks like the hair is full again.
Yes, I've seen that. Now, apart from me, Paul, I would imagine you have all sorts of client success stories. What is one that really stands out?
Well, I meet famous actors, singers, Premier League footballers. I have to, at some point during the consultation, say, if you'll let us use your story, we'll do this for nothing. Unfortunately, they nearly all want to keep it confidential. I had a Premier League footballer once.
They've got the money, Paul.
They got the money. Yeah, I said, we'll do this for nothing if you'll let us use your pictures and story. He looked at me, he showed me his watch and said, this watch cost me more than you're charging me. Why do I want the hassle? I said, fair enough. So, but to the credit of Vinci, all the famous clients have said, please don't share my story. We've never leaked anyone's name to the press who didn't want to be named. I'll tell you two stories. One person I can name and one I can't. So if I said the name Halvor Julius Bjornsson, it probably wouldn't mean a thing to you. If I said he was a former World's Strongest Man winner, probably still wouldn't say anything to you unless you're into World's Strongest Man. But if I said he played Gregor the Mountain Clegane in the HBO series Game of Thrones, in which he appeared in 5 series of that program, given it was the most popular show around the world, there'll be a lot of fans listening to this who will know what I mean. He played the bodyguard to the evil Queen Cersei. Now, this guy is some specimen. He's 6'9". He weighs around 425 pounds for the US listeners, or for us in the UK, approximately 30 stone. That's a big guy. So we prepared for this. We bought at some expense a specially designed and reinforced chair for the operation, which he sat on, leaned back, and snapped it. Just like that. That's £1,000 down the drain for that extra chair that we bought. We've actually got photographs of the nurses on step ladders while treating him, and he's actually in a sitting down position. So that's a really fun experience. And
that's customer service for you.
Yeah, buy an extra chair that he breaks and have to go out and buy step ladders to treat the patient. So he shared his pictures online, which is great for us. Now, a story that I can share but I can't name is an actor who is one of in the UK's top TV soaps. He came to see us very concerned about keeping it confidential and that we would not give his name to the papers. We assured him that we wouldn't, even though it would have been good for publicity for us, of course. He chose to go to one of our clinics abroad. He went to the clinic in Malaga, just to avoid being seen in Harley Street in London. I haven't mentioned that Vinci's all over the world, but for UK listeners, we send people to either Harley Street in London or Malaga in Spain, but we also do procedures in the US as well, and other parts of the world. So for this actor, we sent him over to Spain. We put him up in a different hotel to our other clients would be staying, so he didn't meet anybody there. The procedure took place, everything went fine, and no name was leaked to the press. About a year later, after all the hair has grown in, he appears on breakfast television. Nothing mentioned about his hair, of course, but afterwards, a well-known opinion and blog website, Huffington Post, to put a name to it, put out a story. It looks like, let's call this guy Mr. Smith, looks like he's had a hair transplant. And he's probably had it done by, at this point, Huffington Post named another clinic, not us. So this actor, or Mr. Smith as I'm calling him, calls us up and accuses us of leaking his name to the press. At which point we replied, well, if we'd done that, don't you think we would have actually named ourselves as the clinic that did it and not a rival? He had no reply to that. So the point I'm trying to make is a hair transplant can be kept confidential. You initially just told close friends. There are many people that don't even do that. There are many people that have not told their daughters, their sons, that they've had a hair transplant. And when they come in, I said, we'll tell you how you can keep this confidential for everybody. And they look at me and said, no, it can't be done. I said, honestly, it can. And when I see them for the follow-ups, 6 months, 12 months follow-ups, they say, nobody's noticed. At some point, they're slightly disappointed that they don't look a completely different person. But I said, well, you chose to keep it confidential. If you want to tell them, please do. And mention Vinci Hair Clinic did it as well. So, it's meet some interesting people and celebrities. I would say 99% of celebrities are just very normal people, but we meet some interesting characters there in that world as well.
I just love all these fascinating stories, Paul. So how do clients typically hear about you? And are there certain life moments that usually lead to them seeking you out?
The most common way is probably, as everybody expects these days, is internet advertising. My favourite way is when a past client recommends us to a friend or a work colleague, and I get this a lot. So I know that by the time that he comes to see me, they've already have a certain amount of trust built up because they've seen a family member, a work colleague, whoever it is. They've seen theirs grow in. They know that we do a good job. They know they can trust us. And when that guy comes to see me, I'm pretty sure he's going to sign up and have it done. So that's my favorite method of advertising, but predominantly it's the internet these days. Now, life moments about why they have it done. Well, it could be a 25-year-old who feels he looks over 30 with his hair loss. Could be a 40-something who suddenly finds himself single again. That internet dating world is pretty vicious. I think they look at a picture for about 5 seconds, and some women do like their men to have hair, rightly or wrongly. I've had men tell me that they work in a young environment, they work in a young office, and everybody else is years younger than them. They don't want to look the old guy in the room. So the hair transplant, and I've seen this in myself, I can vouch for this myself, it takes years off people.
And people are cruel, Paul. People can be really cruel and call you baldy and things like this. I mean, this is not
And they think
great.
that's funny and that it doesn't bother you, don't they?
Yes, and I mean, I wasn't completely bald. I was just really receding and combing over, but it was affecting me. So I can only imagine people who are that little bit balder and getting called it as well. That is not going to do great things for self-esteem.
No. Other reasons for people going ahead. We see a lot of transgender cases now, lots of those, often looking to turn a male hairline into a female one. A lot of Indian guys planning to get married. They tell me Indian women like their men to have hair. There's that women liking hair thing again. They tell me that a lot. I remember one guy, he wanted to be a Bollywood actor. We couldn't make him a good actor, but we gave him his hair back. So he certainly looked, his publicity pictures looked fantastic afterwards. Now, there was one person I do recall that did surprise me, made me think. He was a gentleman of 73 years old, and he had a transplant with us. And I thought, now, I'm obsessed with hair, but would even I have a transplant age 73? And I thought, you know what, I probably would, because I'm a bit hair obsessive. So there can be all sorts of reasons, and it's great when people come back and they maybe change jobs or they're in a new relationship or whatever it is. To come back and say, you know, you changed my life. It's fantastic. So there
yes, you go. I actually, for you, I can actually see how much pleasure that must give you on a daily basis. Firstly, knowing that you can solve people's problems who are coming into you, and then seeing the results and the satisfaction that the clinic have given to them afterwards, and you're a big part of that. I can only really praise you and the company and the service and the procedure that I got. You only have to look at my pictures at the results. People never know it's a hair transplant. My hair's really thick now. I'm happy with how I look on photos. I don't have the self-esteem problems anymore. And this is 8 years on. I find your work fascinating. Is there anything we did not cover that you would like to share, Paul?
Well, you probably say that all those, you probably say, I find your work fascinating to most of your interviews, but I know with us, you actually do mean it, because you are a past client. I saw you 8 years ago. You had a terrific result, and I really want to thank you for the endorsements you've given me. As I said, I've done a number of interviews with radio companies, and I've never done one with somebody that was a past patient. To do it today has been a pleasure for your endorsement. So I'd just like to thank you for what you said about Vinci Hair Clinic. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome, Paul. I just want to touch on it again. My hair was receding. I was starting to have to comb my hair over. It was affecting my self-esteem, self-confidence. the way I was showing up in the world, and I researched many clinics. I could not find one with the reputation of Vincey, and I really did my research, and I was so happy with the customer service. I actually enjoyed going to Harley Street. I went on the train, put a cap on the way back so that no one could see what I had done. It was just a great experience, no pain. 8 years on, I do use medication to preserve further hair loss, but my hair transplant looks better now than it did before the hair loss. I am so pleased. Thank you for being a guest on the Brilliance Business Show today, Paul. Before we go and leave this conversation, how can people connect with Vinci Clinic? How can people reach out to you for a consultation?
Okay, so they just Google Vinci Hair Clinic, vincihairclinic.com. You'll find us obviously on the internet. You'll find us on Facebook. So we're very easy to find. If you just typed in hair transplants, we come pretty much top of the listings. But I'd rather you typed in Vinci Hair Clinic, obviously, and you'll find us very easily. Call up one of the team. You can arrange consultations locally. We're all over the world. I deal with patients in the Birmingham area of the UK. And so please get in touch, come along and see us. We don't pressure you. I'd like to think that you'd say the same thing. I didn't say, right, Mark, you've seen me now. Are you going to have a hair transplant? I left it with you. I follow up occasionally. So we don't badger people. I like to think I don't sell, I give information. And that's the way I approach it. So please get in touch. And hopefully you'll be endorsing us like Mark in a year or so.
What a great way to end the show, Paul. Thank you so much once again for being on the Brilliance Business Show.
Thank you, Mark.
You're so welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure retouching our conversation and really getting into topics that I really enjoy. You have been listening to the Brilliance Business Show. I am your host, Mark Stephen Pooler. Conversations with leading experts in business.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.